Yeah, first of all, it is kind of weird we're so far away from each other. We've never done one like this. I think it's for the camera and because of this enormous drone that happens to be sitting on the stage. Can everybody join me in welcoming Timothy Bean from Fortem Technologies? Tim, I want to start with, I know you have this like plaque in your office about Ukraine. And it's a Ukraine, and you do a lot of interesting work, and we'll get into kind of what the drone and stuff is. But could you tell us what's on the plaque, why it's important, why it hangs there?
Yeah, so what we do is we detect and defeat dangerous drones with this product, the Drone Hunter. And maybe we can show a video a little bit later of how it works. But the Russian drones coming in, hitting energy sites and different things, we shoot them down before that they can hurt people. And I've been to Ukraine a few times, and the one time I went there in Kyiv, I was escorted in their government buildings. I didn't meet President Zelensky, but I met one of his generals and his staff of 13, and I was explaining the Drone Hunter and what we do, and that led to some purchases, and you'll see some videos of different things they've done. But after the 2 days of meetings, they presented me with a plaque. I got a plaque, and it's on display at Fortem. I think that's what you're referring to, Clint. This plaque is reminiscent of Snake Island in the middle of the Black Sea. When the war started, the mothership of Russia came up to this island and basically said, abandon the island, we're going to blow it up. And the Ukrainian warfighters, I think there were 9 of them on that small island, used some choice words and said, we are not going to blow it up to Russia. And basically flipped them off. And Russia started blowing up, and they fought for the island. They lost the island. But 6 months later, a Neptune warhead sunk that same ship, the largest ship in the Russian fleet. So they had a stamp made of that. And the plaque that I have is about this big with the Russian soldier, saying something to the Russians. And it's like the most popular thing all in Eastern Europe right now, this stamp and plaque. So Fortem has one in our office if you want to see it. Some of the footage is from Ukraine. It was done, a lot of it was done by the Ukrainians. It's been on Ukrainian TV to kind of inspire the citizens that their government is doing something to stop bombs from dropping on their homes, right? Wouldn't you like your government to do that for you, right? And so a lot of this is their promotion of what they're doing in Ukraine to stop the horrific activity. But go ahead.
Yeah, let's play it. This is cool. This is like something I would want to do when I was like 13 years old.
I know. I feel like I'm in the 6th grade sometimes.
Fly
when I go to
drones
work.
around. Why didn't Biden call you when the balloon?
It was too high. They had F-16s.
The balloon was too high?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, for a propeller like this.
Tell us about this thing. I'm super interested in the AI aspect of it. And who came up with this idea of like, let's just shoot nets at these things and like get them down even like kind of safely. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah. So this, I'll tell you the origins of it in a minute, but just so you understand the technology, this is Scientific America just did an article on this. It's the first drone-on-drone war in the history of the world. And what makes this unique is it's completely autonomous. There's no human flying this. It gets a cue from a ground-based radar. It goes, does a search pattern. That piece of metal in the front's a radar. It searches its target like a radar-guided missile and gets up close and shoots it down. The AI on this will, if the target is smaller and slower, this thing's a beast. It'll go after it and take it out and tow it away. All right? If it realizes that the target is much bigger, it'll get in front of it like a hockey goalie, and it'll attach a parachute to it. One of the key technologies we have is the ability for this net gun, and these are reloadable like razor blades. You just pop them on, it takes about 10 seconds to replace the net and go do another mission. So it's like a reusable missile. And so when missiles and drones come up, you can launch hundreds of these. And when it sees something, it'll take it out. If not, it'll return to land. They'll all return, and you can reuse them. So $300 a shot versus $400,000 to shoot a missile at another missile. I mean, I think it's expensive real quick when they're shooting 60,000 missiles. You just do the math. They're billions of dollars. And so some of the other cool tech in here is how do you get close and shoot? We measure it took us a couple years to measure the electricity to each blade. And based on the pitch, roll, and yaw with the INS chip in the middle, inertial guidance system, it turns an algorithm of how much electricity to each blade into what the wind is doing. Some of the other technology, we build the radar and all the software, we build the drone, all the drone software, we build everything, some of these parts we buy. We build the net gun, but there's 9 or 10 processors in there that we build. And so when you see a target going 40 meters a second, 100 miles an hour, and the radar sees that, and the technology sees that, and it takes X number of milliseconds to see it, then another millisecond or two, a couple of milliseconds to navigate, another millisecond to make the maneuver, a couple more milliseconds to take the shot. You add up to a couple hundred milliseconds. At 40 meters a second, that thing is 4 meters from where you thought it was when you decided to take the shot. Because we control all the technology end to end, we were about a 93% kill rate. So why do we use nets? We use nets because it's safe and it's legal, and but there's many other effectors that you can put on the bottom of this when you're in different situations.
So no one's on the ground flying this thing with like a joystick or anything. How do you control it? Like, how do you say come home? Those types of things. Yeah.
So when you set it up, so this technology was done with DARPA early on, about 6-7 years ago. But how we set it up, one of the real disruptive technologies is we build these small, tiny radars that we distribute, a dozen around the stadium, 100 throughout a campus, 1,000 throughout a city. And we digitize the airspace. We're the radar below the radar. You've heard of flying below the radar? Everyone's heard that. Because these big, expensive, high-powered radars have to point high in the sky so that their radio beams don't reflect off the trees and the moving flags and people walking, and they get all this what's called noise. And so what we've done is we've put some AI technology, some NVIDIA chips with the radar so we can operate at a very low level and understand exactly what's happening. So in these urban environments, we digitize the airspace. So you've heard the saying, data is the new oil. We collect all the data of everything in the airspace over the urban world. Think of CCTV cameras, how they've populated cities and stadiums, and we're doing the same thing with this small, inexpensive radar, digitizing all of this data. Now with that data in software, we can create these volumetric exclusion zones. We can create geo-cages so the drone hunter doesn't fly in different places. When drones enter these exclusion zones, we kick off rules engines to sound an alarm, cue an optical camera, an IR camera, send text messages, or launch a drone hunter. And a question you might ask, a flying drone. Why do you have a flying drone? Why don't you just jam it with your radio? What happened 3 or 4 years ago, if you wanted to protect a stadium from a drone flying in and taking pictures during a game, you would just put up an antenna and you would listen for the communications between the person with the joystick and the drone. And when you listen to that RF, radio frequency communication, you could then press a red button that would jam it. It's kind of like shouting really loud so that they can't hear their signal. When the drone didn't hear its signal from the joystick because someone else is shouting, jamming so loud, that drone would just go in a circle waiting to get its signal back, or it would default to go home. What's happening now is terrorists around the world, or any of you, if you decide to become a terrorist, you can go to Best Buy and you can buy a drone and you can program it on your laptop. You can connect C4 and all kinds of explosives to it. You can set it up near a stadium, and you can program it to just go take off 2 or 3 months or a week from now, and you could just go on your way, be at home, and that drone's going to take off. There's no joystick. It's going to fly right over that antenna because it's not emitting any RF frequency. It's not being heard. So how do you stop it? The only way to stop it is, the technical term is kinetically. So you can shoot a missile at it, which is a little untenable at most stadiums. You can get your gun out, which is ineffective. They had 100 soldiers line up and had a drone go 25 yards high, 25 yards away, 10 times, 1,000 rounds each time, 10,000 rounds, no one hit it. U.S. Army soldiers. If you've ever been duck hunting, it's very hard. Yeah. Okay? And so DARPA, Fortem, we built a drone hunter. And so we were deployed at the Olympics, the World Cup, all these types of Davos.
Yeah.
We were at the G7 with all the leaders of the free world. Where there's high risk of terrorism, people call on Utah, and they call on the drone hunter.
How many of those attacks have you prevented, can you say?
We've been shipping this since 2018. And so we've had over 5,000 captures.
Whoa.
Yeah. So it's when we started the company, you try and get some investors, and you say, well, we're going to have a flying drone that shoots nets. They're like, what? and we say, well, we're going to, this is where the world is going. My 9/11 deeply affected me. My company before this, we built a software platform that helped catch thousands of terrorists and helped lead to the capture of Osama bin Laden. And so I think this is the next wave of terrorism. If you look at people that strap bombs around their waist and are going to go blow up an airport or a building, the surveillance video of these people, they are hesitating for about 30 minutes before they walk in. The video shows them walking in, walking back, going like this, sweating. I mean, they do not want to do it. Most of them do it because of pressures of threats to their family. These drones, and there's not a lot of it in the news yet because it's terrifying, but more and more of it's coming to, with the Ukraine war becoming real, eliminate having to get a suicide bomber. Suicide bombers are hard to recruit. That's a hard ask, right?
So how do you prevent Russia from hacking the software and controlling this thing?
Well, Our major customer is the U.S. Army, and that's public. They've spent millions of dollars with these, and they have some pretty extensive rules. So I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Let's have other people ask questions. Raise your hand if you want to ask a question. We have a mic, I believe. Do we have a mic, folks? Oh, we're bringing it over.
I can hear you. Go ahead. Shout it out.
Well, I'm just going to ask what kind of patents technology do you have on these kinds of things? Do you have a huge patent portfolio? Do you just have like a small little software design? What kind of patent technology?
Just for the video, we're asking about what kind of patents.
Okay, patents. There's a lot of the cool stuff is kept in trade secrets. Okay, because patents. What you can do with a patent is you can read a patent and you can change something and get the same kind of result, different. So there's a lot of trade secrets, a lot of trade secrets in the radar. Radars historically are big dome, power supplies the size of a building, To get the performance of a small radar with the heat and temperature and the accuracy and getting that NVIDIA chip to do AI on the edge or all that processing on the edge with the signals and the filtering. A lot of the patents are there. The net guns are patented. Those are made by us. A lot of the drone hunter algorithms making decisions about when to take the shot.
How do you stay optimistic about the world?
Yeah, it's, my wife helps with that a lot, my kids. Yeah, but it's, you watch the news, and you just kind of see the trend a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think you, like anyone in their life, when they see, stuff not going the way they want to, whatever it is in a relationship or with school or your work or whatever, if you feel like you're doing something to impact it, it's enabling. Like you can do something about it.
Like it's got to be interesting, right? Like a war breaks out, that's good for business. But also, like, that's a war.
Yeah. It's sort of like cybersecurity a little bit. You know the attacks are coming, and so I don't think McAfee or Malwarebytes sells any more or less based on the amount of hacking.
Right.
This is a defensive product. People understand that they need to build a fence, they need to have a guard, they put locks on their doors. And now we're in a new, one of our taglines early on was security elevated, kind of a flip on Utah, You got to protect the airspace now. That's got to be table stakes. And if you look at some of the DHS work and the U.S. government work, these times of airspace protection is becoming table stakes, like building a fence.
Did Trump ever ask you to put this on the border?
We've been on the border, yes.
Okay.
I don't think, I don't know if Trump knows about the product or not. I know Robert Cardillo worked in the White House. He knows about the product, so.
Interesting. All right, I saw a hand. Yeah.
Robert was one of the quotes in the video, in case you missed it.
So you've got a really impressive counter drone technology. What do you see coming up with? I mean, basically there's an arms race in the drone space now, right? And so what do you see as the counter drone, the next counter drone technology that you've got to worry about?
Wow, that is the question of the day, and I'm gonna be careful how I answer it because this is on video. Our vision with this product is to defeat drones of increasing speed, size, and number. And so the big fear that everyone knows is a swarm of drones. You can build these in volume, a small drone, and measured in hundreds of dollars. And anyone can buy them, and anyone can make them. It's this stuff just 5-10 years ago was the purview of large militaries. Five countries could do this kind of stuff. Israel, Germany, U.S., Russia, China, Japan, Taiwan, maybe 6 or 7. Okay, now any of you could have a swarm of drones. $1,000 each. And so, how do you stop a swarm? And so, these work in a swarm. So when an attack is coming, you launch 4 100. Just like if a swarm of Russian MiGs were coming at you, you'd launch a swarm of F-16s. You know, just like World War II, the swarm on swarm is where this is going, or has gone. What else can I say? There's a lot of, you know, people, electronic warfare, trying to jam signals and controls. This thing's autonomous. You know, we're moving into robotics, like the Scientific America, you know, a robotic flying drone with no human, you know, taking care of the situation. Now, the rules of AI in the Department of Defense in the US, there's 5 rules, you can look them up, but one is you always have a human on the loop, not in the loop, but on the loop. So a human can always, you know, stop it, and there's different ways we have of controlling that if we wanted to.
Hi there. My name is Nils Fugel. I'm from Pleasant Grove.
Oh yeah, see your
Yeah.
name all over the place.
Yeah, thanks. I have a question about...
Is your relative the mayor?
It's my older brother.
There you go, yeah.
Guy. So, anyway.
Nice guy.
He really is. Anyway, I assume you don't have any lead protecting the circuitry in this because of the weight. What do you do to counter-react an electronic magnetic pulse?
Yeah. So electronic magnetic pulse is when, you know, big burst of electricity and it short circuits everything, right? And so your car today, driving down the road, if it hits by a big bolt of lightning, that would be a big EMP or electronic magnetic pulse. Cars today survive that. So there are coatings and technologies that survive that. And yeah, it's not, you can spend money and you can survive it. If you don't spend money, you won't survive it.
Hi, Emily Hedrick, Utah Valley University. In a defensive mission or situation where, what is the expected time to issue the drones, and then what is the expected aircraft flight time, and does that allow for any contingencies or change in case a mission could take longer?
Yeah, absolutely. And so everything's a little bit configurable for different missions. Most missions are done in 2 minutes. I mean, you think about it, a drone coming in, you want to detect it out there, 5 kilometers, something like that. This thing is very, very fast. And think of a missile. I mean, it's done quick. If we're chasing it, you know, we got a camera on it, the human on the loop may be looking at the camera and saying, it's just a kid, let it go. Or it may say, you know, take it out. You can configure how much human involvement you want. But all that duration is all, you know, configurable based on batteries and size, and there's a family of these, so yeah. Depends what you're solving for. It's like risk and vulnerability. Like you're protecting your house, right? You have a door, you probably have a lock. Maybe you should get a dog. If someone breaks in with the gun and shoots a dog, maybe you should buy a gun. You know, maybe you got a wall around your house, and maybe you go get some barbed wire. You know, it gets to be a little. You got to figure out what your risk and vulnerability is, because security is an infinite spend, right? You know, so you know, people make a budget choice on what they're solving for.
Could you share some of the founding story from idea to prototype to first working product to the pitch to the first customer?
Yeah, sure thing. So my partner, Adam Robertson, had been working at this you know, radar company, and I got to know him through a mutual friend, and he said, oh, you should kind of work here. And I go, wow, that's kind of cool. What do you do? And that led to discussions over a few months to start our own company. And we had radar. Adam really knows radar really well, and he had a vision of, you know, creating a small radar. And we had friends in Utah, and I spent 30 years in Silicon Valley. I moved here about 7 years ago. Love Utah, and we raised the money, and we had a customer that was going to do large package delivery. And we were going to be the radar that, got that package there safely and didn't hit anybody. And we did some testing and we were working, and then that company had a shift in plans, and so we were without a customer. When you're 8 people and you got 1 customer and you're working on that project and they go away, that's a moment, And so we had this radar, and DARPA approached us and said, well, it can detect things and avoid it. Can it detect things and track it? And we're like, yeah, sure, no problem, absolutely, no problem. 3 weeks, yeah, we'll get that for you. So we worked on it with DARPA and then Air Force Research Labs and then the Army, and over 6 or 7 years, this is the result. But there's a lot of technology around the ground radar that we have, dispersing throughout a city, a campus, and then the software we create to tie all the airspace awareness and the volumetric exclusion zones with the drone hunter. So we sell a lot of what's called DTI, detect, track, and identify. And then the M is mitigation. So the acronym in our business is DTIM. This is the mitigation. But we do a lot of stuff with cameras and radars to understand what's happening in the airspace. And radar is very legal around airports, et cetera. When you go to the airport, you broadcast AM, FM radio, right? So we're just broadcasting a radio signal at an approved frequency across the U.S. Julius Januszowski is he was the leader of the FCC. Now he's at the Carlyle Group, but he's one of our advisors. He's helped us so that we can broadcast our radar across the U.S. with, it takes about 30 days and $50 to get a license, and so people are putting the radars up and ready to roll.
My name's Jason Hartley. I work for SkySafe. I guess we're a competitor of yours of sorts. I'm curious if there are any locations where you have your sensors set up permanently, where you're kind of like always watching where those areas are.
Yeah, it's SkySafe is an interesting company. They have the antennas listening for drones, and they put the antennas up and they sell the data of what they're hearing, and they can hear. Most of the drones are going to, in a couple of years, will be emitting by law something called RFID, right? And so the drones that are emitting, SkySafe will be able to hear and you'll be able to know where they're at. Our technology is really going after the drones that aren't emitting, that are secret and dangerous, and because if you're a terrorist, you're not going to emit, right? So kind of airspace management and DTIM, detect, track, identify, and mitigate. So we do a lot of events. Toshiba's a large investor. They're on our board, so you can assume a lot of sites in Japan. Lockheed just came in as an investment. They want to do a lot of different things with NATO. Trying to answer your question but not be too specific. Hanwha just put $10 million in the company. They're the largest defense contractor in Korea. They've got a pretty nasty border there. We do a lot of things to help stop drones.
Are you strictly a defense contractor, or are you going to try to get into commercial things? Like, there's all this talk about delivering stuff for like Amazon, dropping packages on people's houses and other shipments. I know in other countries they use drones to like deliver blood supplies to, remote hospitals.
Yeah, we're not a delivery company. We sort of protect infrastructure. We're a physical security company. And so whether it's privately owned, you can buy this and we'll sell it to you. If a lot of government work we do with police that have to protect something like an event, and then obviously defense as well right now.
I was trying to ask you about what your revenue model is. So you work with military and you just mentioned police forces, but what are some of your other sources of revenue? And is this, like, if it's a stadium, is it like a one-time use where they rent it, or are you selling it to them? And if so, who's the purchaser?
Yeah, it's really all the above. Some people buy the equipment and we don't know what they're going to do with it. It's a one-time purchase. Other times they'll buy a 3-year subscription, for updates and different things for their site and renew those contracts. And sometimes we just deploy on our own and sell the data. So It's all three right now. And when you're in commercial, government, and defense, defense is just a lot of big POs, and they want the equipment, and they're not going to tell you what they're going to do with it. And with that said, we've hired a lot of field service reps. These are contractors, usually ex-military, that like living in Ukraine, and their dream job is to be on the front lines of Ukraine. And I didn't know those people existed, but they do. And they work for us. They have a W-2. They have families at home, and so a lot of customers will buy a lot of service along with the product.
I'm not sure if it's been addressed. My name's Chris.
Hi, Chris.
What happens with how do you like in Ukraine in a war theater? How do you prevent your taking down a Ukrainian drone or a friendly fire situation?
When so the software is just smart enough to know what to cue this to, and it stays locked on to what it's cued to. And if the human on the loop doesn't want it cued to that, it can, uncue it. But usually, there's not a big drone from Ukraine flying towards the energy site, 300 meters high at 100 miles an hour. They just don't do that, Yeah, so there is, we've been at some stadiums, there are white lists where a drone that's emitting a certain signal we'll ignore. And so the stadium or Fox or whoever the TV, everyone trusts that drone and trusts that operator. But they still put a rule in if that operator goes within one of these volumetric exclusion zones, that rule will be executed and that drone will be stopped even though it's emitting a friendly signal.
Tim, congratulations on your success. I'm
Thanks.
curious, you're clearly in the defense space today. Any thoughts about moving into offense?
Yeah, there's always those thoughts, and right now we are clearly in the defense, and I just have to leave it at that.
Hi, Tim. My name is Mike Bezant. I'm not from Pleasant Grove, but my family's from there. So anyway,
Yeah.
I'm just curious to learn more about your startup experience. Like each time you thought up a new product or built a new team, got it funded, and moved it into a viable product. If you could talk more about that.
Yeah, this is my, I guess my fifth one. And so I think the hardest decision in life for anybody is, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I mean, really, deep down, what do you want? And then I've just always lived my life, like, if I want that, I'm just gonna go do it. You just go do it. I don't know other way to explain it. There's lots of stories there, but if you want something, you make a decision to go do it. I remember in college, this is well before my first company, I knew I wanted to be in tech and I wanted to make a big impact, a big difference. And my family was as modest means. I put myself through school. I remember driving to LA with a $20 bill and pulling over to get a job at Wendy's on the graveyard shift so I could eat. Slept in a friend's basement for a few days until his parents kicked me out. I would get up at 4:30 in the morning and go hot tar roofing till 2 in the afternoon. And then I'd go look for an internship job till about 5, take a nap, and then go to Wendy's so I could eat. And I mean, those are hard times, but I wanted to get my education, right? And I wanted to get an internship, and I got really good grades. And those two things led me to, I got a job at a big company, and the big company was terrible. It was just terrible. There was no mentor. They were scared of the new smart guy, all the older employees, and I was going to take their job because I was so cheap, that kind of dynamic. So I quit after 8 months, and I went to a small startup, and with great people, and great mentors. And over 9 years, long story short, I grew up there as one of the early software developers to be the VP of engineering, running a $500 million product line. In the 90s, if you made a phone call and the person that answered said, press 1 for this, press 2 for that, press 3, remember that? Maybe they still do that. 86% chance that was my code. So I just got in with a great group of people with great mentors and grew. And the company went public. It was the fastest NASDAQ growing stock from 94 to 96. And just learned so many skills from these great people. So if you're young, find a company with great people and learn from them. Find a mentor. And so after that, I was a VP of Silicon Valley. The internet hit 1998. Anyone could get a job being an executive. There was just a boom time. So I started a company, an internet company. That got sold in 2001. And then, I had such a network from that first company that there were just ideas coming. I think my advice is, this is going to sound weird, but don't follow your dreams. Follow your opportunities. And turn your opportunities into your dreams. Right? I mean, so many people sit there and go, oh, yeah, I got $20, I'm working at McDonald's or Wendy's, wherever I was. What are my dreams, right? It's like, I got this advice early, just follow your opportunities. Wendy's was hiring, I could eat for free. I got an internship. I can control my grades. I got this job, no good mentors. These people are great here, man, they want me. Great mentors. And you just follow your opportunities, and your opportunities can become your dreams. I met Adam Robertson, Fortem, just through a friend, just kind of talking about a job doing this radar thing, and he had a vision, and we had a customer, and it was like, hey, worth the risk, let's go for it. Customer went away. A month or two later, I could have killed Adam at the time, because I had left a previous startup that I was passionate about to kind of go do this next thing. But yeah, I think you have to find what you're passionate about. Again, I'm going to foot stomp this. You have to find out what you really want, what you really want to do. And it's a super hard question to answer. But if you answer that, like after 9/11, it deeply affected me. And we started a company, similar way with a network of people, and we helped catch thousands of terrorists. It was a large software platform that did a lot of signal intelligence and led to the capture of Osama bin Laden. We were just one piece of the thousands of clues to go find him, looking for him for, what was it, something like 15, 20 years. So you just got to find out what you want to do and then go do it. And you just got to follow your opportunities.
Could you tell us about the collection of trophy drones that are hanging from the ceiling in your office?
Yeah, those were all early versions of the drone hunter, different ideas and concepts. And it just evolves as you learn things and get better. But if you come to the office, we created this wall that has our history. And has all the different versions and models of the drone hunter and the different radars and the software and just kind of all the funny stories of the company. Just really kind of some silly pictures up there. It's fun. Yeah. Too many stories about that wall.
So you talked about opportunity. How did you stumble on this opportunity of working with these big companies like Toshiba or Boeing or Lockheed, like you said?
Yeah, so Boeing's an investor, Toshiba, Lockheed, Boeing. When you raise money, it's sort of a catch-22. No one wants to give you money unless you've been successful in the past. And you can't be successful in the past unless someone gives you money. And so there was a guy at my very first company when I was in my 20s. I was a software engineer. He was individual contributor marketing guy. I grew up in that company to be the VP engineering. He grew up to be a business development executive. we went off in our careers, and he was a CEO. I went to work for him as a CEO, and we started a company, and then he went off to become a venture capitalist. So when I went to go start Fortem, he's one of the first guys I called, and he's a guy I did right by in my 20s. My projects delivered on time with high quality, and as a marketing guy, I made him look good. And he made me look good. And we helped each other a lot as just young people. And we kept that relationship for 40 years. And so when I needed someone to write a $500,000 check, we had to convince his partners, but he was there backing me. So you have to do right by people. People say it's who you know that gets ahead. I guess my take on that's true, but it's like, who have you done right by that you know? Who have you done right by? And so the Boeing story is a perfect example. I knew a guy in California, his family friends, just a guy. He was traveling for work. His wife had a bit of a crisis, and we were helping her through this family crisis till like 2 or 3 in the morning, and became good friends. And 30 years goes by, and this guy sees on Facebook or LinkedIn or something that we have a drone company. He calls me up and he says he's great friends with one of the executives at Boeing. You should meet him. So Adam, my partner, and he, the way it worked out, went to meet this executive at Boeing. Adam's a great guy. The executive at Boeing was all excited. He says, let's start the process. So 9 months later of working with the Boeing team, doing testing, executing, working hard, they said, we've compared you versus everybody else. We're in with you. So, you know, would that guy have called me if I wasn't a friendly guy, didn't help his wife? Looking back, if I didn't have any relationship with him 30 years ago, giving back, probably not. Boeing probably wouldn't be an investor. So I think you just have to kind of give back. Like anyone here, if you want my card, I'm glad to go to lunch and talk and give back and help. But for you young people, the people you're sitting next to that are 24, 25 are going to be the VPs and CEOs in 20 years. Build those relationships. Find the smart ones. Find some old folks that can be mentors. Keep those relationships. Do right by people. And it just starts to, it's a very righteous cycle.
My word, this has been one of my favorite conversations ever. Please give it up for Tim. Tim, thank you so much. That's unbelievable. You built an incredible company. Your story is super inspiring. Have fun. Hang out here as long as you want. Come talk to Tim. Thank you all for coming.
All right, thank you.